Peace, family. My name is Vicki Dillard for African Diaspora News Channel. Thank you so much for tuning in, family. Now, you all know I am known over the years for doing broadcasts on how different nations greet other nations. I find it absolutely fascinating. Of course, I have shown you in times past the glorious rollout that Russia provided for the illustrious president of Eritrea, President Isaias Afwerki, and his delegation. I have discussed how China absolutely rolled out the red carpet for, again, the glorious President Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea, on and on and on, right? I've discussed how China made a fool of Germany's previous foreign minister. She was out there, she was looking all around the tarmac. They didn't even send anybody for her baby. Now she's at the UN. But anyway, I digress. Because how many of you all know, and when you're dealing with diplomacy, baby, everything is everything. How nations engage diplomatically has everything to do with the way the nation treats each other, from trade to communications to deals to contracts and to other parts in other global affairs. Yes, issues matters. So I find this very, very interesting because uh, the UK has had a very, very tumultuous time in their relationship with China. Number one, you can't come in with no colonizing mindset. And number two, you can't be doing the bidding of another colonizer like the United States and impose sanctions and do a bunch of crazy stuff and think that everybody's fixing to just meet you, with a red carpet. Well, family, I want you to watch this very, very short clip of the greeting from China to the UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Watch this.
Keir Starmer has told Xi Jinping he wants a more sophisticated relationship with China as he met the president at the Great Hall of People on the first full day of his trip. The Prime Minister said China was a vital player on the global stage. Speaking ahead of a tour of the Forbidden City, he also confirmed to the BBC that he raised the case of Jimmy Lai and the issue of human rights. In his opening remarks, President Xi said the UK-China relationship had seen in recent years twists and turns that did not serve the interests of either country. But he said China stood ready to develop a long-term strategic partnership. Our China correspondent Steve McDonald reports from Beijing.
At the Great Hall of the People, the first British Prime Minister to visit in 8 years was welcomed. The governments of both China and the UK have decided that relations had been in the cold for too long, and now the thaw is well and truly on.
China is a vital player on the global stage, and it's vital that we build a more sophisticated relationship where we can identify opportunities to collaborate, but of course also allow a meaningful dialogue on areas where we disagree.
You've publicly said that China is an opportunity and that dealing with China is not a choice, but a necessity. I commend these words. China stands ready to develop with the UK a long-term and consistent, comprehensive strategic partnership. It will benefit our two peoples and the wider world.
Even before his arrival, the Chinese government was talking up Britain's commitment to free trade and multilateral institutions like the United Nations. The contrast being with the Trump administration.
Did you see the young man on the tarmac, baby? Did you see when? Did you see him just got off the plane? The plane, Keir Starmer, and the young man is showing him around and welcoming him, just fresh off the tarmac. Doesn't he look like he just graduated Boy Scout? Doesn't he look like a strong Boy Scout? The sold his little popcorn, got all his little badges, went camping and everything. Can't tell him nothing now. He's on to the next phase of life. The Chinese brand of Boy Scouts, if they have one. Shout out to China, baby. And Keir Starmer no doubt knew that he was fixing to get that treatment because I'm sure he saw my other coverage. I'm just giving a little bit of tongue in cheek on that. But it is hilarious to me because you're not just fixing to treat them any kind of way and think that you're getting ready to get this wonderful and glorious diplomatic greeting. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, I'm reading now from this piece from the Indian Express, and I know that India sometimes has some of their media has, kind of a strange way in which they cover their relationships with China is often very, very and obviously slanted, unfortunately, for some of them. But every now and then you'll get some good stuff. I just want us to focus on some of the details here. And this says UK-China ties have long been tumultuous. Is Trump enough to bring them together? UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's trip to China is being seen as a reset in the bilateral ties. What led up to it and what were its outcomes? Very quickly, just so you know, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer concluded his 3-day visit to China on Saturday, January 31st, and many commentators calling the trip an attempt to reset bilateral ties. Starmer met Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing and was accompanied by a delegation of around 60 British businesses and cultural organizations. The visit resulted in some important announcements, including the pharma giant AstraZeneca agreeing to invest $15 billion in China over the next 4 years. An official readout from the Chinese Foreign Ministry also emphasized the global context. Listen, y'all, underlying the visit. Quote, the international order is under great strain. Major countries in particular should set an example. Otherwise, the world will revert to the law of the jungle. As supporters of multilateralism and free trade, China and the UK should advocate and practice true multilateralism, baby. People are tired of you colonizers. People are tired of you colonizers. Multilateralism means that you ain't just the stuff, Britain. You in the United States aren't just the stuff. There are other countries that's out there that you should treat as your equal. That's what that's about. The New World Order for the current invalid world leaders. They are scared about the New World Order that they don't control, because the New World Order that they don't want is one that is equal. That's what that leaves them shivering and shaking. Equals. If they don't feel supreme and dominant over all the rest of the world, they feel that the new world for them is in danger. Being equal and just is losing to them. That's what the equivalent of. Are you listening? Just a couple of things here I want to say on the section about how actually the UK and China's relationship started to nosedive. It says that the low in China-UK ties can be gauged from the fact that Starmer's visit was the first by a UK Prime Minister in 8 years. Since then, Prime Minister Theresa May's trip in 2018, the UK has had 4 prime ministers. Coincidentally, Canada Prime Minister Mark Carney, who also visited China a few days ago, was the first Canadian Prime Minister to visit China in 8 years. In 2020, a briefing for the UK House of Commons noted the deteriorating relationship, and that's a quote, between the countries, which followed 2 decades of closer engagement and cooperation. It identified many reasons for the decline, including the involvement of the Chinese multinational company Huawei, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, in the UK's 5G mobile phone network. The United States opposed it over its transactions with Iran, which the U.S. has sanctioned security risks concerning the Chinese state, which ultimately holds power over private companies and charges of theft of technology. The company was ultimately banned from the UK's network. Also, it says here's some of the other things that cause the relationship to deteriorate. Mounting concern of the erosion of the, quote, one country, two systems status quo in Hong Kong. During the colonial era, China had leased Hong Kong to the UK, which returned control to China in 1997 on a conditional basis. A novel mechanism was instituted, granting Hong Kong greater political and economic liberties while it remained under Chinese control. Over the last decade, China's increasing attempts at dictating Hong Kong's politics and institutions have caused friction with the UK. Many Hong Kongers protesting the Chinese government have fled to the UK to escape crackdowns. It noted other important factors like Chinese secrecy of the origins over the pandemic and China's human rights clampdown against the Muslims there, and it goes on and on and on. It says further, a recurring issue with the UK's long-hair reservations about China's espionage activities and monitoring of its citizens. Now, a lot of that sounds like just a bunch of malarkey on UK's part. Because, number one, we come up, and when I say we, not really me, we, included. I'm talking about we, meaning the West, white people, and the so-called elites, those that's controlling the illegitimate powers that should not be. Not the powers that be, but the powers that should not be. That's in place now. That's what I mean, we, them. Well, when they feel like that somebody is surpassing them technologically in any other way, they will come up with any kind of trick and lie to say you're doing something. They'll say human rights. How you going to say human rights, America, when you blowing up people, tearing up governments, and kidnapping presidents all over the world? And you did that before you did it the other day in Venezuela. Talk back to me, somebody. The UK is also complicit in the stuff that's going on in the Middle East also right now. So all of those are just, most of that is just a bunch of games. I'm not saying that there are not some legitimate issues where things need to be worked out, but for the most part, most of that is smoke and screen to control China. So the UK is doing it for its own reasons, but they're also doing it because of pressure from the United States. Now, when you call yourself a sovereign country, a sovereign nation rather, both, you cannot be suffering from peer pressure. You're too big for that. Peer pressure from somebody else. But that's what happens when you give another nation more control, and when you all behind the scenes are complicit in other crimes that the world likely don't know about. Allegedly. Shout out to China for putting them in their place. We're going to see what happens next and about this so-called reset, but everybody knows that China is essential to their economy. Just be fair. Work out whatever legit issues you have and stop doing all this crazy stuff. Multilateralism, not a unipolar world where unipolar white people running everybody else. No, baby, that day is gone. That dog don't hunt. As the folks from Mississippi I used to grew up here say. My name is Vicki Dillard, beloved. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it below in the comments. Beloved, I am so excited because coming up February 21st, I'm having my second in a series. Of course, I've done many more Ancestors webinars over the years, but this is my part 2 of a recent Ancestors webinar that I did free for the public for many hours. This next one is a feed for it. If you're interested in it, go to my website at VickiPlanet.com. That's VICKIPlanet.com. It's called, watch this, Bloodlines, Mood Trade Lines. Whoa, I'm telling you, it's going to be off the chain. I'm going to talk about the sacred secrets that's already in your lineage, already in your bloodline, and what you can do to position yourself to ship-shape the new world to come. Yes, go to VickiPlanet.com, share the broadcast here. I can't wait to see you again.